Thank you, Barbara. Before I invite Jane up, I just want to thank the other speakers for sharing kind of what it's like to live in the north part or outside of the cities, because I feel like sometimes my first time coming here to Edmonton was a big shock, because my family only lives 5 hours north, and I come from a small Cree community, and I remember the first times I would come to the city and I'd be like, wow, there's so much amazing stuff here, and I'd be really excited to come here. There was swimming pools, there was running water, there was all these things that my family and my community didn't have, and we're only 5 hours away. So when I eventually went to university and graduated, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do, but I knew I wanted to figure out ways to improve communities and make sure that our communities had the necessary things that they needed. And so when I would continually go back home and see the impacts of the land, I would start getting really upset, and my dad would drive me back home to visit my grandmother or my family, and I would just get more and more upset and cry and see the impacts that were kind of coming. And so that's why I decided to dedicate, the past decade of my life to talking about environmental issues and talking about the climate issues that I think are really important to Albertans. And so one thing that I wanted to share, and the reason why we're talking about pipelines so much, is because 4.5 years ago, there was one of the actually biggest oil spills in our territory back home. And it was probably one of the most horrible experiences I've ever had. My family couldn't breathe, their eyes were burning, their stomachs were turning. They had to stop the school for a week and a half because they were breathing in the toxic fumes from one of the biggest oil spills in Alberta's and Canada's history. And I felt like, all the things that I was doing, it didn't matter how much I would talk about the issues, how much I would try to discuss and debate with the issues, I would go home and I would see the same thing over and over and over again. And that was, made me even further resolve of what, our communities, it's farming communities, it's First Nation communities, it's all communities in the north. I've worked with farmers that have breathed in the same toxins that we breathe in. We breathe the same air, we drink the same water, we live on the same land, we reap the harvest from the land so we can eat. And so, from that experience of that spill, I turned around and decided, what does a just transition look like for our communities, for our families, for our workers? Because all of my family works in industry, everyone else on the stage, their family works in industry. It's not about ending jobs for workers, it's about creating new jobs that are upgrading the jobs, that are improving the jobs. And that's what we decided to do last year in my community, was actually implement solar technology and power our health center. And so we trained the workers in the community to install solar. And so I think that this is a very tangible, very possible thing here in Alberta. I see Randall, who has a solar company for the past 16 years. And it's just more and more, we see it all over the world. And it's something that is happening in the world. And I think that, there is ways to transition our workers, electricians, construction workers, all of these are needed in the new economy of renewable energy that's happening in Germany and all around the world, creating 400,000 jobs in Germany. It's amazing to see what's happening. So I just wanted to say that, and also thank Jane, because Jane was actually, when I met her a couple of years ago, I told her I was really excited. I'm like, oh, we're doing a solar project back home, and she was like, that's amazing. And then so she actually is like, how can I help support? And she just decided to donate to the project. And so that's a part of the way that we were able to get the solar project up in northern Alberta. So I just wanted, to extend very deep, heartfelt and sincere gratitude for all that you do. And for us as Indigenous people, you're our elder. This is someone, for our elders, it's such an amazing thing for all of our elders to join us and to come. And I'm just so thankful that you would come and stand with us, to lift up our voices, to create the dialogue that we need, and that you're a visitor here in our homelands. And so I thank you for coming and standing with us and sharing your words with us. So thank you, Jane.
Showing off. I may be old, but I can still move around. Just about everything that I wanted to say has been said much more eloquently than I could. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank
the Indigenous peoples that have been here and been with me over the last few days. I've learned so much. I'm so grateful for your courage. I learned several years ago of what you've been doing in British Columbia, for example. I mean, you have stopped pipelines just because of your courage with your bodies and your blood, and I'm just so proud, and I'm so grateful to Melina for making this all happen. I met Melina a couple of years ago at a rally, a climate rally in Vancouver, and she told me about her tribe and how it's been impacted by the tar sands, and she said that she would love me to experience a flyover, and we've been talking about it over the ensuing years, and so, gosh, it wasn't very long ago when she called me and she told me what Prime Minister Trudeau had done, and that there were approved new pipelines, and could I come and do a flyover. Well, it was 40 below over there. And there was a lot of snow. It probably wasn't the best time to do it, but you know, we're just about to start some really big fights in the United States, so I thought I'm going to go now, very quickly, while I can. I'll take advantage of it. Not to trash Fort McMurray, not to come out against the people who are working there. I understand the need to go where the money is and get paid a decent wage. I understand that. It's bigger than Fort McMurray. It's bigger than Alberta. It's bigger than Canada. It's bigger. It's a global problem. And I've learned over the 50 years that I've been an activist that it does help to be a celebrity, to raise the issue and get press to come when they might not come out and cover it. And it encourages the dialogue and debate, which is so important. The fact is, we are at a unique time in human history. This has never happened before. At the horrendous election in the United States on November 8th, when literally we looked at each other and wept, and some people threw up, and people said, I don't belong here. This is a nightmare. We're going to wake up from this. But then others said, look, 4 years. You know, we'll survive this, we'll fight, and in 4 years we'll... And I said, no, you don't understand. This is a very different situation now. We don't have time. We don't have time. There is a point, a tipping point. If we don't do what's right before we hit the tipping point, it's going to be too late. Things are going to get really, really bad, even if we do the right things starting yesterday. It's going to get bad. The refugees we're seeing now are going to be multiplied many times over. They're fleeing lands that cannot support a family anymore. There's drought, there's flooding, it's so hot in some parts of the world that a human being cannot go outside and survive. I mean, this is the reality now. And if we don't start doing what's right very, very quickly, then it's going to be uninhabitable. Indigenous peoples have been warning us about how human beings should relate to the land for centuries, and we didn't listen, and now we're reaping what we've sowed. And I am so moved that our Indigenous peoples are still willing to stand with us and again try to explain what has to happen. I mean, it's amazing the generosity that shows. Most of what I wanted to say has already been said. I want to emphasize, because I know it was pretty intense in Fort McMurray. I know that it's not pleasant for people who are scared and hurting because of the uncertainty of their work when some movie star bops in on a plane and, you know, is criticizing the possibility of new pipelines. I get it, and I'm sympathetic to that. But the fact is, we're not against you. We have a common enemy. And sooner or later, we have to realize that, and we have to stand together. You've been lied to. You've been lied to by people telling you that environmentalists are against you. That's not true. You've been lied to by saying there's no alternative. We really depend on oil. Everything we do, we can't possibly move in another direction quick enough. It's going to be a very, very slow. Wrong. All you have to do is look at the countries around the world that have already done it. I mean, for heaven's sake, I had electricity from a windmill. I had a home that was entirely solar. My electricity came from photovoltaic cells since the 1970s already. The technology has been there. It has been there. What we have to do is what has already been said. We have to think we're going into a world war, and we have to make the kind of political commitment that you make when you enter a war or you want to go to the moon, with every single ounce of our courage and commitment. And we have to get our leaders to do it, or we have to throw them out. You know, I mean, I am so tired of being seduced by good-looking liberals. Black or white, neoliberalism has got to go, okay? That's not where the solutions lie. The alternatives are much more job-intensive. They're there for the having. We just have to have a government that supports it and makes the commitment and get him to do the right thing, you know? He cares about being popular. I think one of the reasons that he caved the way he did to the extractors is because he wants to get reelected and he needs money. Let's make him feel sorry that he did it and make him change his ways. I mean, Trump's a lost cause, forget it. We call him the predator in chief. And his billionaire cabinets of abusers. I mean, it is really tragic. People think I'm rude to Trudeau. I'll be way ruder to Trump, believe me. And I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I love Canada. Always when I've come here to make movies, I cross through customs and I enter Canada and I feel like I'm in a safe, liberated zone. You know, I mean, wow, I love Canada. But I just want to say we're all in the same boat. Time is running out. Let's not fight each other. Let's join together with compassion and empathy to make it right before it's too late. Thank you.